Nobody in the room could understand what the billionaire was shouting except the maid. It was supposed to be a routine meeting. A group of elite executives gathered in a luxury hotel's grand conference room, waiting nervously as one of Japan's most powerful billionaires flew in for a high-stakes deal. The mood was tense, not just because of the size of the investment on the line, but because nobody had thought to arrange a translator. Everything was polished, the suits, the smiles, the slideshow presentation, but when Mr. Takahashi, the billionaire, stepped in with his private team, it was clear there was a problem. He spoke in rapid, emotional Japanese, and no one understood a word. Awkward silence filled the air. Whispers and glances passed between the executives. Some tried to smile. Others looked to their phones in desperation, searching for translation apps or backup interpreters. The billionaire's voice grew louder, more frustrated. His hands moved sharply, pointing at charts, documents, and eventually people. He was clearly angry. The tension in the room was thick enough to stop time, and just when it felt like the deal was about to fall apart, someone spoke. Not one of the suits, not the nervous assistant. It was the maid, a young woman in a simple uniform who had quietly been pouring water and tidying the side table. She stepped forward with calm confidence, looked Mr. Takahashi in the eye, and replied in perfect, fluent Japanese. The room froze. Every head turned toward her. Even the billionaire stopped mid-sentence. Who was she? How did she know Japanese? And more importantly, what did she just say that made the billionaire pause, and then slowly nod? This simple maid, invisible just minutes ago, had suddenly taken center stage in a billion-dollar negotiation. But what happened next shocked everyone. Keep watching to find out how one unexpected voice changed everything. For a few long seconds, no one moved. The air was thick with confusion and surprise. The executives stared at the maid like they had just seen a ghost. Even Mr. Takahashi, who had entered the room with the arrogance of a man used to total control, seemed caught off guard. His stern face softened just slightly as he listened to her words. Then, without warning, he turned to his team and said something in Japanese. They nodded. But to everyone else in the room, the mystery only deepened. The maid, whose name tag simply read Sarah, stood tall, her eyes steady. She didn't look nervous. In fact, she looked like someone who had done this before. The room, still silent, seemed to wait for an explanation, but none came. Instead, Sarah stepped back, picked up a tray, and continued working as if nothing unusual had just happened. Behind the scenes, people scrambled. Assistants whispered to managers. Someone rushed to find the hotel director. How could a maid, someone not even involved in the meeting, speak Japanese fluently? And not just basic words, but with precision and confidence, enough to calm down a billionaire known for his short temper. It didn't make sense. Who was Sarah, really? Rumors started to spread. Some said she was a language student working part-time. Others believed she had a past in international business, but had chosen to disappear into a quiet life. The truth, no one knew. And Sarah wasn't offering answers. Meanwhile, Mr. Takahashi's attitude shifted. He seemed more focused now, speaking directly to his team with a new level of seriousness. Whatever Sarah had said clearly mattered. And the billion-dollar deal, once hanging by a thread, was no longer the only thing people were curious about. Now everyone wanted to know the same thing. What secret was the maid hiding? Behind the polished glass doors, chaos was growing, just not the kind anyone could see. The executives tried to continue with the presentation, but their voices trembled, their eyes constantly drifting toward the maid in the corner. Sarah moved quietly, avoiding attention, but the damage had already been done. Her sudden fluency had changed the energy of the room. It was no longer just about closing the deal. It was about uncovering who she was and Why she was really there, Mr. Takahashi remained strangely composed now. He didn't shout again. He watched. He listened. He occasionally glanced in Sarah's direction, then whispered something to his assistant, who quickly pulled out a sleek phone and began making calls. It became clear that the billionaire was no longer just reviewing investment terms. He was investigating. Back in the hotel staff lounge, whispers ran wild. Some of the workers had known Sarah for months, others only for a few weeks. She was polite, quiet, never caused trouble. But now, people were starting to question everything. One housekeeper said she once saw her reading a book in Japanese. Another swore they heard her speaking French to a guest last month. The more people talked, the more the mystery grew. At the same time, the hotel's manager, Mr. Navid, was under pressure. Word had reached him that something unusual happened in the executive suite. Now he was being pulled in both directions, trying to maintain professionalism for the VIP clients while also figuring out how one of his employees had just stepped into an international negotiation. He called Sarah to his office later that day, but she didn't show up. Her locker was still full, her uniform neatly folded inside. But she was gone. Meanwhile, Mr. Takahashi delayed his flight. Unusual for someone like him. Whatever Sarah had said had sparked more than just interested, had stirred something deeper. The question now wasn't just about the business deal. It was about Sarah's past, and why someone with skills like hers had chosen to live in the shadows. The hotel lobby was unusually quiet that evening. Staff moved with hushed urgency, eyes darting toward the elevators every time the doors slid open. Mr. Takahashi had requested a private dinner not with the executives, but with the maid. The problem was, no one could find her. Security had checked every floor. Her locker was untouched. Her keycard hadn't been scanned. But her presence was still being felt. That brief moment in the boardroom had created a ripple effect no one could stop. Executives were no longer focused on numbers and presentations. They were exchanging theories, trying to piece together who Sarah was and what she had said that changed the entire direction of the deal. Mr. Navid was now caught in the middle. The hotel owner had called him twice, furious and confused. This was supposed to be a seamless, high-profile partnership between Japanese investors and the hotel group. Instead, it had turned into a strange manhunt for a maid who seemed to know too much. He replayed the security footage again and again, Sarah stepping forward, speaking fluently, then calmly returning to her work. No panic, no hesitation. Like she knew exactly what she was doing. Meanwhile, Mr. Takahashi made a quiet phone call, not to his board or his family, but to someone overseas. In Japanese, he gave a name, Sarah's name. Whoever was on the other end seemed to recognize it. The billionaire's expression changed, just slightly. Not anger. Something closer to disbelief. Across the city, in a small, rented apartment, Sarah sat quietly by the window, a simple bag at her feet. She hadn't run at least not yet, but she knew the silence wouldn't last long. Too many eyes were now on her. Too many questions she had spent years avoiding were rising again. She had spoken up to help, not to be found. But now, the very identity she had buried might be the one thing threatening to surface. The question was no longer just who she was, but what she was protecting, and why someone as powerful as Takahashi looked like he had just seen a ghost. The next morning, the city woke to an unexpected headline quietly circulating through niche business circles. Japanese tech giant delays deal amid internal concerns. The article didn't name the hotel, nor mention the real reason behind the delay. Those inside the building knew exactly what had caused it. And now, more eyes were turning toward the hotel, not just from Japan, but from overseas. Something bigger was unfolding, and the mystery surrounding the maid was no longer just a curious side note, was becoming the center of a much larger storm. Back in the executive suite, Mr. Takahashi sat at the head of the long table again. Only this time, his energy was different. He wasn't angry. He was calculating. In front of him lay a printed photo granny, pulled from old news archives. It showed a younger version of Sarah, dressed formally, standing beside a group of men. In suits, the caption, in faded English, read, International Youth Diplomatic Summit, Tokyo. Her name wasn't listed, but her face was clear. The room fell silent as he placed the photo in the middle of the table. His assistant whispered something about disappearing records and classified involvement. The executives, already overwhelmed, looked even more confused now. Who exactly had they just crossed paths with? And why was someone with a diplomatic past working anonymously as hotel staff? At the same time, back in Sarah's apartment, an envelope slid under her door. No name, no sender, just a hotel keycard and a small note written in Japanese. You were never invisible. We need to talk. Sarah froze. This wasn't just about a business deal anymore. Someone had found her, and not just Takahashi. Someone else. Someone from the past. The walls were closing in faster than she expected. Her secret wasn't just out, it had become a bargaining chip in a high-stakes game she thought she left behind years ago. And this time, walking away might not be an option. That night, the hotel's rooftop was closed to guests reserved for a private off-the-books meeting. A gentle breeze swept across the empty terrace as Sarah stepped into view, wearing a plain coat, hair tied back, eyes sharp but calm. Waiting for her was Mr. Takahashi.